So today we're going to learn about circles. Alrighty. So, watch this now. I did something over here. Watch when I click on this next. We're doing graph and write equations of circles. Watch, Anna, you should watch. What? Circles, get it? Oh goodness. Okay, so anyhow, I work hard to come up with these things. Students will be able to graph and write equations of circles. How do you write the equation of a circle? It's pretty easy. We've already learned how to do parabolas, right? And so now we're going to learn about circles, then we'll learn about ellipses, and then we'll learn about hyperbolas. So what is a circle? We'll start off with the definition. Circle is a set of all points x, y that are equidistant from a fixed point called the center of the circle. I think you guys already kind of know that, and you know what the radius is. If I asked you to draw a circle, you could probably draw one. There you go, right there. So basically what we do to get the equation of a circle is just to use the distance formula. If this is an arbitrary point on the circle, what's the distance? Let me get my pen going here. What would you say this distance is? Well, the coordinates right here would be 0, 0. And so if you wanted to find the distance, you'd say, well, the distance, this radius, you'd say r is equal to the square root of what? Well, it's equal to the square root of x minus 0, and then you add that to subtract the y coordinates. So then you'd have y minus 0 squared. And so if you take a look at this expression, one thing we could do is square both sides to get rid of the square root. So I'm going to square this side, and I'm going to square this side. Well, the square cancels the square root because they're inverse operations. So this square root cancels off with that. And so what we have here then is r squared. And what do we have on this side over here? Well, we have x minus 0. Well, x minus 0 is just simply x. And if you square it, you have x squared. And y minus 0, of course, is just y. And if you square that right here, you get y squared. So my friends, the equation for a circle is that. R squared is equal to x squared plus y squared. Real easy equation.
Okay, these are flyers for Boogie because he was nominated to as the most valuable coach. And if you guys go vote for him, the school can earn a $5,000 grant, and he would be honored at the Under Armour All-American Game live on ESPN. So I'm supposed to hand these out to anybody who wants one. So does anybody want?
Oh, cool. No one else wants. Thank you. Okay, so that's a really easy equation. So circles. Okay, can we continue now? So it's going to be really easy to graph circles. And so what we want to do though is write this circle in the standard form first. And so right here what I would do is what I want is x squared plus y squared is equal to the radius squared. You see? So basically what you want are the x squared and the y squares together. Oh well, do you have something to say? I heard you talking back there. Do you have something to say? Oh, can you just chill for a while until I'm done with the lesson then? That goes for the rest of you guys. If you really want to talk and it's so important, go in the hallway and talk and then come back in here, okay? Alright. So what I want to do is move the y squared to the opposite side. So I'm going to add y squared here, and I'm going to add y squared here. And this gives me x squared plus y squared minus 4 is equal to 0. Well, to get this in standard form, I need to move this number to this side. So now I'm just going to simply add 4 here and add 4 over here. And this gives me x squared plus y squared is equal to 4. Now, according to our equation, that's the radius. Well, if that's the radius, then that's r squared. You see, I have r squared then is equal to 4. And that allows me to solve for r, because I could take the square root here and the square root here, and I get r is equal to plus or minus 2. You see, so really what this is just a circle with radius 2. So if I go over this way, you start at the origin, you go out 2, you go out 2, go out 2, go out 2, left, right, up or down, and those are some points on your circle. Now you can go out 2 over here also, but at this point I think I can draw a sketch of my circle. I just have to make it look like a circle. No, mine is pretty bad. And there you have a circle with radius equal to 2. You see there's 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. Isn't that easy? So to graph a circle, now hopefully your circles look a little bit more round, because you know circles get around. Alright. Alright. I know it's so stupid, right? Alright. Alright, well here's a new example. This one's quite a bit harder. You actually have to think a little bit. This time they're telling us a point that's on the circle. So, where's my graph? Hang on just a second. Forgot my graph. There's my graph. Okay, so they're telling us that the point negative 4, 7, where would that be? Negative 4, 7, right here. This is a point that's on the circle. And the circle is centered at the origin. That's what we're told. And so this right here is my radius. Right there is my radius from here to here. So I'm thinking there's some circle, and there's some circle that kind of flies around like this, you know. That looks awful, but it's something like that. And so what I want to do is write the equation of the circle. So now I'm kind of working backwards. Well, in order to write the equation of the circle, I have everything figured out. It's going to be x squared plus y squared, and that's going to be equal to r squared. So all I really need to do is calculate what r is, and then I just need to square it. Does that make sense? So here's the thing to realize. You can just simply use Pythagorean's theorem, because this creates a right triangle right here. This creates a right triangle. And so if you want to think of it this way, this would be like A, B, and C. You remember Pythagorean's theorem? It said a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Well, the c squared in this case is the radius. And so what we can do is just put this in. That's for a right here. This is 4. So what we're going to get is we're going to solve for this r squared. R squared is equal to what? It's equal to negative 4, and we square that, plus 7. And this is this 7. This length here is 4, right? And then we're going to take 7 and square it. And so then what do we get here? This gives us 16 plus what? 49 is equal to r squared. And then I add these two together and I get what? 65 is equal to r squared. Now there's a lot of people that don't think, and they just keep on going and they think about solving equations. But none of you guys will do that, right? We could take the square root here and solve for r, right? But you know what? We want r squared. So why solve for r? What we need is r squared. And there you had it. So let's just back up a second and go back up a little bit more. There's r squared is equal to 65. So now what you do is you take this number and you put it in right there. You see? And so then you have x squared plus y squared is equal to 65. And that's the equation of our circle. Now, my circle, I didn't draw it in very nicely, but I mean, it would look more centered about, and it doesn't look centered quite. This is awful. But anyhow, you get the idea, hopefully. Any questions? So, this probably requires us to practice a little bit more. Let's try one more of those, I think. Alright, so here's another one. Alright.
All of these were used Pythagorean theorem?
Sometimes, yeah. Basically, you use Pythagorean theorem, and that's kind of what we're doing in the first section, 8.1. We're learning about the distance formula. Makes it kind of easy. All these are related to the distances of focal points and stuff like that. Now, what you don't realize is that there is a focal point involved. Where's the focus point for a circle? Anyone have an idea?
At the vertex.
At the vertex.
Right, the center.
The center. Yes, that is exactly where the focus. Now look, when we had parabolas, right? You had a focus sitting right here, right? That was your focus point. Well, when you have a circle, okay, the focus point is right here. It's right in the middle. And that turns out to be the focus point. It's just, we call it a special name called the center. The center of a circle. And you're going to find out in a few days here when we get to ellipses that ellipses have 2 focus points. So cool stuff coming up in the future. Alright, so let's try this problem now. So again, you need the equation of a circle, and really you have most of the equation. It's x squared plus y squared. Again, all you need to do is figure out what r squared is. We're almost done. I mean, so using this point right here, we can figure out where r is. Positive 2, 5. There's our radius. It's right here. You see, there's our radius r. And so naturally this creates a right triangle, as you might notice. We have a right triangle right here. Bam.
Is it positive 5 or negative 5?
Oh, negative 5. Thanks. Thank you for catching that. Look, I'm trying to see if you guys are paying attention on a Monday. And so positive 2, negative 5 takes us down here. Alright. Similar idea. We do have a right triangle right here, though. You see? There's the right triangle right there. And this length here is 2. This length is 5. So you can solve for r using Pythagorean theorem. So we could say r squared is equal to 2 squared plus negative 5 squared. And so that's equal to 4 plus 25, which equals 29. Now again, since you have r squared now, don't take the square root now because you actually want r squared over here, you see? You want r squared. Well, now that you calculated what r squared is, just put it in. So we get x squared plus y squared is equal to 29. Is this too hard? Okay, so that's the intermediate problem. We had the real basic problem where we just graph it. Then we have this problem where you come up with the equation. And there's one more problem that we like to do. For some reason we like to find tangent lines. So let's try one of these. For some reason, yeah. So we want to, what is the equation of the line tangent to the circle at 13? Excuse me, x squared plus y squared equal to 13 at the point negative 3, 2. So what we're going to need is a slope and a point. Okay, because we're trying to find the equation of a line. You know, for any line, this line, you typically write this as y is equal to mx plus b. There's the equation of a line. So what we need is a slope and we need a point. Well, hey, guess what? We already have the point that we need. This is going to be our point we're going to use. So what we need then is the slope. Now here's the key fact about circles and their points of tangency. It's always perpendicular to the radius. So if you can find the slope of the radius at that point, then you can find the perpendicular one by doing the negative reciprocal. You guys remember the rule from geometry? Remember, if you have parallel lines, okay, then slope number 1 is equal to slope number 2. But if you have perpendicular lines, then you take slope number 1 and you multiply by slope number 2, and that product has to be negative 1. Okay, that's from geometry. And typically what we did is we just used the reciprocal. Remember, like if this slope here is 2/3, then this slope has to be what? 3 over 2, right? 3 2s? But one of them has to be negative. You see? So that's the idea behind this perpendicular. So let's take a look at this problem and see if we can figure it out. I'm going to use my eraser and give myself some clean room to work. Okay, so first of all, I have the equation of the circle. So I do have x squared plus y squared is equal to 13. Now, if you imagine this, there's this circle that we can draw. This value is r squared, right? You see? So if that's r squared, what's r equal to? That's the square root of 13, right? And so I can do that in my calculator, and I can find out what the radius is. And so that's something I could do, square root of 13. Now the radius is actually, this is about 3.6. Alright, good enough. But you know what? I know one of these points that's on the circle. I know that negative 3, 2 is on this circle. So if I go over negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I go up to 1, 2, this point right here is on the circle. So there's my center, and there's my radius is right here. So the circle kind of swings around like this and comes around like this, and you don't have to have a degree in an art to do a circle, but you know, it's something like that. Hey, that's pretty good, you guys. Not bad for Mr. Muscle up here. Alright, so there's my circle. Not bad. Okay. So the equation that I want is tangent. Well, I don't know if you've seen a tangent line before, but what it means is, and we did this in geometry a little bit, is that it means it touches a circle only in one point. Bam. Like that. You see? There's our tangent line. And it's that equation that we're trying to get. You know, right here. We want y is equal to mx plus b. So what we're after is the slope. That's the first thing we're after. Is how do we get that slope? Well, if you take a look, this is where it's perpendicular. It's perpendicular. So my slope number 1 I can get from the radius. You see, because I went over this way, I went up this way. And so slope number 1 is this one. The rise was 2 and the run was -3. So there's slope number 1. You can think of this as slope number 1. Slope number 1. So slope number 2 is the one that's going this way. And so what I can do is I can get slope number 2 by using this idea that I was telling you over here. If you just flip this fraction, we get 3 over 2. And we want one of them to be negative, one of them to be positive. So since that one's negative, we'll make this one positive. So there you have it. Slope number 2 is that. Well, so we've taken care of the slope part. And so now I have part of my equation figured out. I have y is equal to 3/2 x plus b. I still need to figure out what b is. And so this is where the point comes in handy. Remember, I need the slope and a point. Well, they gave me this point. And now I'm going to use it. Because this is my x coordinate, I'm going to plug that in right there. This is my y coordinate. I'm going to plug that in right there, and this will allow me to solve for b. Okay, make sure you're writing this down or figuring it out. I think your study guide has an example worked out also. But anyhow, you'll certainly want to be able to do one of these. Alright, so what is my x coordinate? Well, I got to plug in 2 goes in right here. And then I have 3/2 times whatever x is. X is -3. And then I'm going to solve for b here. Well, -3 times +3 is -9. So this is -9/2 is equal to 2 plus b. And now what I want to do is move this to the other side of the equal sign by adding 9/2. And I'm going to add 9/2 over here. By the way, what's 9/2 equal to in decimal? Goes in there 4.5, right? 4.5. So that's really 4.5, right? So if I take 4.5 and add 2 to it, it's going to be 6.5, right? Well, there's the second piece of my equation then. I now have the final piece. So the equation then of that tangent line, 3/2 x plus 6.5. Now for whatever reason, we just found that tangent line. Just so that we could do it. It turns out that the tangent line is kind of an important spot in mathematics because often it gives you, it allows you to find forces. And when you do physics, you want to find certain forces. And the normal force you find out is it's perpendicular to the surface. And so sometimes you want to find a vector and stuff like that. We do this in physics all the time. So you probably won't appreciate what we're doing in this problem until you take physics. And it's probably going to have to be something like college physics. then you'll start to be able to understand, oh, that's why we did that in Algebra 2 long time ago. Okay, so just trust me, it's math that you do later on. So we're just kind of laying the foundation on how to do that. And it seems like busy work, where you're just finding the equation of a tangent line, but it's something that's useful later on. Okay, everyone, see that? Okay, so we can do this one also, and I'm thinking, let me see something here on your study guide. I'm thinking you have an example worked out already. Oh, I guess, no, maybe not. Okay, so, well, let's do this one, and we could review the steps one more time. Okay, so, again, what you're doing is, if you look at this circle, we know the point 5, -6 is on the graph. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so 5, -6 would take us down to right here. And so there's this, there's the radius right there. This would be our radius, right? And there's this circle that kind of passes through that point. And I'm not going to draw the entire circle, but really what we're interested in this tangent line. There's a tangent line that passes through right there. Like so. And it's this equation. We know that creates a right angle right there at the point of tangency. There's the point of tangency right there. And it's this equation that we want to get. We know it's going to be y equals mx plus b. And in order to find out this equation, we need a point. There's our point. Okay. We need the point and we need the slope. So once again, we can get the slope because there's the radius right here. You see that makes a triangle, right? That goes this way. And so we can get this, we can call it slope number 1 from the radius. And so let me just do some work here on the side here. And let's see, I'll try blue here. Slope number 1, what is it? If you start at the origin and you go down, how far did we go down? Down 6. And we go over 5. Shh, keep quiet please. Down 6, over 5. So there's slope number 1. Now how hard is it to find slope number 2? Slope number 2 is going to be this one, and it's always the reciprocal of the previous one. So slope number 2 is 5 over 6. And remember, one of these has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. Well, since that one's negative, the slope that I'm after is 5 over 6. So I have part of this equation figured out. Y is equal to 5 over 6. But I still need to figure out what B is. And now do you see why this point comes in handy? This is my x value, this is my y value, right? So I'm going to put -6 here is equal to 5, 6 times, I think this is supposed to be a 5, times 5 plus b, right? Well, if I finish off the algebra here and simplify this fraction, I'm going to get 25 over 6 plus b. Now if I get a common denominator, I'm going to multiply by 6 here, I'm going to multiply by 6 up here. This would give me -36 over 6. And now when I move this fraction over, I'm going to get b straight away very quickly. I'm going to subtract 25 over 6 here, and I'm going to subtract 25 over 6 here, and that'll allow me to get b figured out. It looks like to me it's going to be what? 61. It's going to be 61, negative 61 over 6. And so where's my equation? It's got to be 5, 6. Looks like this one, isn't it? Answer B. Alright, so that's our hardest type of problem that you'll see on the assignment. Okay? You'll have to come up with a tangent line. So there you have it. You can work on the study guide. You got about 20 minutes right now to work on the study guide. Try to finish up the study guide right now in class.